Are you ready to rumble? Welcome, everybody. We are here on He Said, She Said, They Said, a real discussion on real estate in Victoria. I'm JaneJohnston with the BriarHillGroup at REMAX Camosun. This is...
Hi, I'm Andrew Plank with Royal LePage. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. We were having technical difficulties earlier.
Yes, a little bit of a misunderstanding about start time. So, but we're all good now. We're starting at 10 a.m. So we're on track for today. Just wanted to discuss what's going on with the market and two terms that we hear often in real estate. One is bully offer, and the second one is referential offers.
Right.
But before we start that, I thought maybe we should just talk about what's happening with the
stats. Let's do our fun every weekly stats, because it's a bit of a same as, but it's just more of the same, and it's not changing, which is, we're hoping for some change here for some respite for our clients. Anyway, where are those stats, Jane?
Here they are. Yee-hee. Okay, so 640 unconditional sales this past week.
This past month.
This past month so far, we're in the third week. This compared to 563 last year.
For the full month again. So already kicking last year's behind. Yes.
And just remember, we were starting to hear a little bit about COVID last year. So we're going to be entering into the comparison pre-COVID and COVID over the next few months. So all of our stats are going to be skewed.
Is what you're suggesting, right? Yeah. Okay. Okay.
So new listings, 753. Why do you think that is? Why
are the listings low? I think a number of factors. I think people are afraid still to list because of COVID. There's new variants out and so forth. We're still in the COVID times, but also it's really hard to find a place. And a lot of people who want to sell also want to land somewhere else, and without actual assurance that they can actually find that place. And we'll be talking, as Jane mentioned later, about referential offers, bully offers. Those are the kind of language you hear in a market that is really low supply and really high demand, which is what we're in right now.
Exactly. And if people have a place to go to, then they are more likely to list. And it's kind of ironic because like begets like, really, in real estate. Okay,
what do you mean exactly by that, Jane?
Okay, well, I mean, if they have a place to go to, they're more likely to list. And if they're more likely to list, there's more people likely to be looking.
Yeah.
And then if there's nowhere to go, then they often don't want to list because they don't know where to go, because they don't have a place to go to. And it's hard to write an offer subject to sale right now.
So we're victims of our own, caution or what have you. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. I can't find anywhere to go, so I'm not going to list. And your neighbor down the road is also doing the same. And you'd love to move into the neighbor's place, but you don't know that it's coming up for sale, and they don't know vice versa. So the dominoes just cannot fall.
Right. So if you're willing to sell right now and you've got a place to go to, you're at an advantage.
Yeah. And as always, talk to your realtor. We have strategies. We have ways we can come up with to try to mitigate these concerns.
So last week, what I did was I actually put a call out for some sellers who have sold their place, and we found them a rental. And I actually heard from two people. I got them a rental in literally 30 minutes after putting the call out.
Nicely done. Yeah, and we're seeing a lot of that in our networking groups, our realtor networking groups, where we're connecting the dots that way. We're not rental agents, but we are at least helping to connect some dots.
Yeah. So active listings were down at 1,348. This is compared to 2,127 last year.
Mm-hmm.
And we could see that the list to sale ratio of 201 to 195 means that
pretty, again, 1-to-1.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I heard a stat this morning that about half of the single family property selling in the Victoria area are going to multiple offers. So that's quite a large number of properties. So you have a 1 in 2 chance of, when you list your home, of being in a multiple offer situation. And you can name that depending on what price point you put your house at.
Right. And I will say for sure it depends on price, because if you are not pricing your home well, you will not get the viewings and you will not get the multiple offer.
Yeah. Yeah. This is not a market where it's a license to print money, but it is a market where if you follow the advice of your realtor and you strategize right, you're going to end up with a quick sale for maximum dollar. The risk of going higher than that is, of course, that the market changes or that your property goes stale on market and people start to think it's not worth what you're asking. You end up with.
So let's just talk a bit about the bully offers. And referential offers, they're all to do with the fact that the market's so fast right now.
Hey, Jane. Yeah. I want to buy your house. I've got $2 million. And I know you said you were going to sell it next week and look at offers next week, but my $2 million is right here, right now. Take it or leave it. You've got 2 hours to make the decision. Otherwise, I walk and I go buy the house up the road. What do you think?
Well, I'm the listing realtor, so I have to so have you written that offer in writing, or are you just saying it orally?
Just trying to give an example to our
I know, just say yes, I've written.
Okay, yes, it's written. It's written in paper, and here it is. Here's the offer. Please make a decision in the next 2 hours.
Well, let me talk to my sellers. So I do have a duty to present all offers to sellers. However, in this case, my sellers signed an agreement that they would not deal with bully offers because they wanted to give everybody a chance. So
are you saying that you have other people interested and you have other agents you need to be in communication with?
No, my sellers have said distinctly they don't want to deal with bully offers. So can you come back on Thursday when everybody's going to be submitting their offer?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that's situation number one. And so, the question arises, are there going to be other properties that come up between now and Thursday that you're going to want to write on?
And are there going to be other offers on Thursday that are above the $2 million that I just offered you?
Right. Okay, so scenario number 2 is you write the bully offer and the list price is $1.5 million and it's $2 million. So what do I do? What would you do?
Well, again, it depends. So Jane referenced instructions from her clients, and so she's savvy. And so when she listed the property, she had a conversation with her clients, and it's all about informed consent. So she discussed the possibilities with her client and said, the best thing we can do is expose your property market, give everyone time to come through it and view it, because during COVID times, it's hard to, have funnel everyone through a home in time. So we're going to look at offers next week. So we'll expose your property market, look at offers next week, and we're going to put it out there. You're going to sign instructions to me that says we won't be looking at offers until next week. But what happens sometimes is people want to jump the queue. And so there are sometimes instructions written that say, even if I receive an offer, I'm not obligated to present it, which is in contrast and conflict with our actual board and rules of Provincial BC. So we need to actually keep our clients informed of any offer. But we also have to follow our clients' lawful instructions. So with informed consent, we hold off. Maybe it's a gray area, I think. But anyway, I would still let my clients know I've received an offer. It's up to them if they want to view it.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, they may decide they want to be ethical because we've put it out there to everybody. Hey, we're going to receive offers on Thursday.
Yeah.
Okay. But in the other case, sometimes the seller goes, oh, well, that's a really good offer. I only have 2 hours to decide. What do we do as a listing agent? We have to let everybody know.
We have to let anyone who's inquired know, and anybody who's even made, let's say, a showing request for coming days. There's sort of some interpretations of this rule. But we really need to let anyone possible know that the goalposts have changed, that an offer is going to be reviewed sooner than the date projected. And so that it's an even playing field. Everyone has an opportunity to possibly bring an offer. It's tight though sometimes. And maybe the folks haven't had a chance to see the home yet, or maybe they've seen it and like it, but in 2 hours, they just don't have time to put together an offer. So the seller has to really consider whether or not they want to take that quote bully offer. If it truly is an offer that could be the very best they're likely to see, they may want to take it. But generally speaking, you're better off to wait if it's a desirable property. What do you think?
And I would say don't write a bully offer less than the asking price. What's the advantage to the seller to write a bully offer less than the asking price? Because you're just going to, they're not going to consider it, because the whole reason for delaying offers is the fact that they want to maximize the coverage, the marketing, maximize the attention, and you are coming in as technically a low ball. They're not going to want to sell it to you.
What if they write a really nice letter, Jane?
I've had that happen. And, at least come in at asking. If you want to ask them for a favor, ask them and give them what they want. So in a multiple offer situation, we ask, what are the dates that somebody's interested in having, the seller's interested in having? What terms and conditions are okay? So sometimes sellers do pre-inspections, and so that allays the concern of the buyer. I had a buyer yesterday say to me, well, why would I rely on an inspection by an inspector that the seller is paid for? And the answer is the seller has done this to give you
information
and convenience, and disclose everything by an impartial party ahead of time.
Yeah.
I would say it really depends on the inspector. I would ask your agent, what's that inspector like? How have you worked with him or her in the past? And so can you rely on that inspection to be impartial? And I would say, in this case yesterday, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I would honestly, I would want to be careful of that, Jane, and those inspectors are hired. They're going to give impartial information. The report will be impartial. It was done for the benefit of the seller, and so there is some reason why a buyer might want to have their own inspection.
Yeah,
and absolutely have their own representation, be able to ask their own questions about what's in the report. And yeah. I find, just like the story of the wise men and the elephant, everyone's like blind men and the elephant, where they're trying to, you don't know this story? Let me tell you. Blind men are asked to describe an elephant. And one is holding the tail and says, this is a snake. One is holding the trunk and says, this is a tree, right? And everyone's describing it differently. So the thing is, a building inspector will see this elephant, this house. They are generally going to capture most of the main points, but everyone will see it a little differently, and you get a different report depending on what inspector you use.
Right, and that's why you want to just take into account who the inspector was, because there are inspectors that I wouldn't recommend.
And I do, and let's say I'm not advocating for a pre-inspection. I think it's a great idea. As a listing agent, I've been on the receiving end of, buyers not, let's say there's 10 offers coming in and 3 have done pre-inspections. That's 3 inspections that were done, 3 people who have spent money for inspections. 2 of them won't have been able to win this property, assuming one of those 3 is the one that actually makes an offer that gets it. Out of the 10, maybe none of them do. And so then they have to go on and buy another pre-inspection on another property, another one, and another one, if it's really important to them to have an inspection. Before making an offer. And so they're spending a lot of money that's going out the window. So having a pre-inspection from the seller's perspective can save those folks some money, but just got to be careful as a realtor around advising your client to depend on that, I would say.
Yeah, and what you can do is you can ask the listing realtor, can I call up the inspector and ask some questions about their report, because that may be one way of kind of massaging some of their concerns.
Yeah.
And then you're, like what I say to people is, really, you have to do what's in your best interest to make yourself comfortable with this purchase.
Yeah.
So if you want to rely on the inspection, then go ahead. But the inspector doesn't have a vested interest in being incorrect either. And the seller doesn't have a vested interest in giving an inaccurate inspection report to a buyer. So the purpose is to lay it all out, because often sellers, we are required to have a property disclosure. We're not required to fill it out in our board. And so when we list a property, we have to put one on. And so some sellers cross it out when it's an estate sale, or they haven't lived in the property for a long time because it's a rental. Most buyers feel comfort when it's disclosed because it is a legal document. And so I don't know, would an inspection constitute a legal document if they relied on it?
Well, that's where, again, the listing agent and the seller have to be careful about how they present that information. And really, just like when you go skiing on Mount Washington and you sign the disclosures that say, I'm not going to sue if I break my leg on the mountain, that is a waiver of liability. You have to kind of let folks know this is not to be relied upon. It's just something that may be used to launch in further investigations. But the buyer's absolutely up to them to do their own due diligence.
Yeah, and actually I say that to them, even the property disclosure, because sometimes, a seller may fill it out on their own. I find it helpful to ask the question and then sometimes dive a little deeper, because it may twig something the way I ask it.
Yeah.
So for instance, are there any material latent defects on this home? And they go, what's a material latent defect? And then I can define it. Does your property flood in April every year? That's a defect. Do you have ants that come through your house in July? So it's helpful sometimes just to get the information by an individual who's not tied to the property. And I will say, there's some, I have a list of inspectors that I use, and I have a list of inspectors that I don't use. And because I've had a bad experience, or they've, gone and poked a hole in somebody's wall of a house, or.
Right. Yeah, I've had that experience too, where a building inspector the building inspections are not supposed to be invasive. You don't own the house yet, so you're not supposed to be poking holes in walls. And I have had that happen from an inexperienced building inspector, where they poked some holes, two little prong holes, but it was from a moisture sensor. But the seller was really upset about that. That being said, I just want to qualify something that Jane said earlier. List of inspectors that she uses and doesn't use, that's a list of inspectors that she recommends and doesn't recommend. It's the seller who chooses. And if the seller chooses one from that list that Jane probably doesn't use,
the buyer,
the buyer, pardon me, because they got advice from a friend or someone else, we've got to be careful about saying, no, don't use that inspector. It's not our job.
I don't give the list of the inspectors I don't use.
Yes,
I give the list of the inspectors I do use.
Yes, exactly.
So, what does a good inspector do? A good inspector inspects the property. It looks at the roof, the wiring, the plumbing, the foundation, and the overall structure. And then they walk you through the property. We're in a house that's maybe, like, at the most, a big house, 60 feet from one end to the other, in a huge house. And I really, truly believe that your inspector should walk you around, because there's going to be stuff, like when they say that there's a window cracked on, where is the window? And they show a picture of the window. Well, all the windows look the same on the photo. But if they give you the report and then they walk you around the property, then you can see, okay, you know what? What's this thing sticking out? Oh, that's the That's a pipe, the clear out for the secondary drain we have around the house. Oh, what's that mean? Oh, because we have a perimeter drain because in the fall we have water that comes down this hill or something. Like all of this stuff is, I think it's very visual, and you have to apply to people's type of learning. So if you're just looking at a screen, that's good. But I find that the buyers come away, and I've literally had an inspector like do this on his laptop because I got an inspection in an hour. I got to go. And we're asking a lot of questions, and the inspector is, feeling rushed.
Yeah. Well, ultimately, the buyer needs to, like, this is one of the, oftentimes buyers see a property once before they make an offer. And then the second time opportunity to see the property is during the inspection. And the inspector is running through their report. And, there's this sort of a balancing act. Buyers need to understand that they're not buying a perfect brand new home, generally speaking. And so there's going to be issues. There's going to be essentially a honey-do list or, a task list of things to do. It's not going to be, there's not an expectation on the seller to fix those things necessarily, but what you're looking for are those things that hadn't been anticipated, are large expenses to remedy, that really could give you pause or warning that tell you, okay, I either need to renegotiate my purchase, or I need to walk away from this or run. And a building inspector should be objective, but also be able to say, and I will often ask questions like, how often do you see this kind of thing? Or, is this something that you see a lot of? And, in the scale of 1 to 10, what would be a concern for you here? Like, try to get some questions to help put it into perspective for the buyer, so the buyer doesn't get scared off when a receptacle is wired backwards.
Yes, it's very common.
Is an easy fix, versus they aren't scared when there's problems with rotting foundation. And they think, oh, no problem, I can get this. My dad's handy, I can get this fixed. So you kind of want to balance both sides to that. Anyway, we're getting
and also as an agent, like if we're walking around the property and let's say we go into the bathroom and I'm looking up at the fan and I'm seeing a pelt of hair on the fan, and then I see dark spots, I'm going to be like, hey, you know what? Maybe those dark spots are because they don't have the airflow going through the fan because they have this pelt of hair there. I mean, there's some causes and effects that we aren't aware of that affect a house. And, sometimes people are worried, an undulating floor. What does that mean? Well, it could mean a number of things. It could mean that the way the floor was laid is in alignment with the way that the
joists
joints are, and so it undulates. So, I mean, that all is experience. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So we were talking bully offers and referential offers, and we went down a side path. And this is what we do. But so we go back, and have we finished talking about bully offers?
Well, I would just say in the end, it's up to the seller what they want to do. Just keep in mind that just keep in mind the optics of it, I guess. That's what everybody needs to think about. And, as agents, we will just try and be as fair as possible to everybody who has expressed interest in the property. We do have to let them know if an offer has come in and if the seller is wanting to deal with it.
Yeah. And again, there's not always time for those, even though we've let everyone know, there's not always time for them to deal with it within that timeline. So it is complicated. It's always a business decision that the seller should sort of consider. This is what's in their best interest. We have our own rules and ethics we have to follow. And of course, the seller, if they sign something that says they don't want to look at offers until Wednesday and then they change their mind, I'd say that's within their rights. It's not necessarily a contract so much as an instruction to us. And if they change those instructions, we go with that. But ultimately, it's best to pick a path, pick a channel, and run with it. And sometimes new information comes up and you do need to change that. If so, we're under some constraints, but we will do our best, and we are, obligated to follow your lawful instructions.
Right.
Bottom line.
Right. And I would say, even if you're, you're prospectively looking at the property, you haven't seen it yet. So that's where the bully offers come in, is because they're trying to stop other people from seeing the property. And anyway,
we're seeing sight unseen offers as well, where buyers haven't even seen a property, but they're making an offer without even seeing, because it's just that tight a market and they've lost out so many times. They say, that's in the area I want. On paper, it looks great. Let's make an offer, get it accepted and tied up right away, and then we'll go and decide afterwards. So shoot first and ask questions later. That's generally not if there's a held off offer situation, but it can be.
Right. Yeah. So Danielle's asking, as we get more inventory, do you expect there to be less bully offers? Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Less bully offers, but they'll exist in every market.
Yeah. So part of this is also depending, like, I've been asked 2 different questions in the past week. One question was, why are realtors pricing homes so low? Well, we negotiate the listing price with the seller, and we look at what's been going on in the market and we price it accordingly. Some realtors, yes, may price things low. Some may price things high. It all depends on what the discussion with the seller is and how motivated they are to sell, and what kind of activity they want on their home.
Keep in mind too that often sellers will interview more than one agent, sometimes 2 or 3 or 5, sometimes more. But regardless, they're going to get estimates of value or marketing evaluations from each of those realtors. And that's based on, what do we think the marketability of that home is? We're going to give recommendations and suggestions and advice. This is where we think you should list it. This is where we think it will sell, higher or lower. I mean, sometimes you suggest a low listing price to say, I think you're going to get here, but you want a quick sale and no fuss, no muss. You want to get all the dates you're specifically asking for. Let's list at an attractive price and try to generate multiple offers. You might list higher, but anyway, this is all conversation between you and the agents. Agents aren't picking the price. We're recommending price. And
right.
Generally speaking, sellers want as much as they can for it. So when you say we're coming in low, the fact is the market just keeps saying, okay, here's the market today. And then people are looking at these homes and saying, I can't find a home and I need to bid above that. So now here's the market today. And now here's the market the next day and the next day. And it just keeps going.
Yeah. And so what I do is I always tell sellers, we can discuss the strategy but we're going to pick the price on the day we list the property, because if the neighbor has listed their house at X amount of dollars, we want to consider where we are in relation to them. And I would say the most important thing is location. How hot is your area right now? Yeah. Because certain areas, like I usually focus on the core and the West Shore. And I've been going from Souk to Sydney because that's where the inventory is. Yeah. In the outlying areas, absolutely. People are going further afield, and the heat in the core is just so hot. And yeah, I mean, I've recently listed and sold a property, and we were looking at pricing, and the comparables were saying, here, this is what sold in the past, and this is where the value is. This is what's the comparable sales were telling me. The comparable listings that looked comparable to that property were listed here. This is what people were asking. So do we list at this price and look like we're really good price, or do we list at this price somewhere in here and we look comparable to what else is available on the market? And those ones, we're going to still look good even if we list right here. And if you list here, like with anticipation, if you list higher than where
these ones have to sell first.
Pardon?
If you list higher than your comparable properties that are on your competition, these ones are going to have to sell first, generally speaking, before somebody will consider yours.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yes. And also, I think that's where the market begins to slow down, because if you have an average value of $1 million and now people are starting to list at 1.1, you're going to reach a much different crowd. Even though the sales have been going at 1.1, you're just going to reach a much different crowd than at 9.99. It's just because the lending requirements are different, and so there are consequences unbeknownst to you. Often, when you get a multiple offer, I always say, like, here's list price, you'll get a lot at list price, you'll get a few above, and then the outlier is the one that sells. Everybody else is down here, but it's the outlier that's winning the bid. And so don't price your house, don't outprice your house, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
Referential offers.
Yeah. Referential offers. Let's talk about those, because that's maybe where the outlier comes in.
So here's what another term for referential offer is. First of all, it's considered to be a counteroffer, because you're asking a question in the offer, and the question is, if anybody else brings in an offer, I'm willing to offer this much over. And so really, it's we were discussing this, some realtors, and I'm like, it's a question. Hey, can you give me a call before you accept anybody else's offer? Because I don't want to bid too high, and I want you to tell me what I need to bid in order to win this offer.
Which is really frustrating when you've got, well, number one, that's not your job to help other, like, you can't treat the other realtors unequally, for one. And for two, if you've got 10 offers and 5 of them are saying, tell me what the other offers are. Anyway, let's take a step back. A referential offer is an offer that references another offer on the table. It's using the other offer to say, I'm willing to pay, let's say, $5,000 or $10,000 more than the next highest offer. You just tell me, maybe redact the buyer's information, but you show me proof that the offer is at this price point. Then my client will make a decision really quickly as to whether or not they're willing to pay this $5,000 or $10,000 more. And that offer isn't an actual offer, because there's no number on it that's the initial offer to say, this is what I'm offering. It can only be taken into reality with the existence of another competing offer. And so they're frowned upon legally, but there's mechanisms for making them work. Jane, do you want to?
I personally don't like them. I think they're a bit underhanded. I understand why people would do them. I find they're a bit disingenuous. That's my value around them, because I just find, the seller has put their house up for sale, and we're not in a auction. We're in an offer situation, and if we want to do an auction, we can do an auction, and that's a different format.
There's been some chat of that, actually. There's been some talk of auction. I've heard colleagues and so forth saying, why don't we move to auction, because it's essentially where we're going. The challenge for a seller when we move to auction is those outliers won't be the ones. You won't be getting outlier pricing, because those outliers will bid one price point above the next highest offer, which would have been, as Jane's example said, you're going to have, around the listing price, some above, and an outlier. If you're an auction, you're going to get to this point, and those people will come out, and then that's it. So it's a hard one for a seller where hope springs eternal to say, let's go to auction. But there's also been always the case, many times I've had buyers say, I would have paid that, when they see the accepted offer price on a home that they competed on. And I invariably say, but I told you, make that price point, make that offer where if you see the purchase price, you say, I would have paid that, go to that price. And don't go $1 above it, but go to the price that you say, I would have paid that.
Yes. And often agents don't know how to deal with a referential offer, because they're like, well, okay, so let's say this place is listed at $750 and the offer comes in at $725, and it says, I'm willing to pay, I'm willing to pay $25,000 over the best offer, and then the best offer comes in at $825, and then like you're way out. You're not even in the ballpark. So then you're putting the seller and the listing agent in a bit of an awkward position, I find.
That buyers just don't want to, like, it's hard for buyers, especially in the market where either they're starting out or they are really experienced in the market, that they just don't want to be that outlier. So they want to pay a fair, reasonable price, but they don't want to be the outlier. And so they're saying, like, let's offer a reasonable offer, but also ask for an opportunity to have a discussion with the seller and their agent around being the best price if we're not the best price. Yeah. But that's the problem is then you're sort of reopening the playing field to everybody if you do that. And so I always put a price on my offers. For one, it's not clearly referential, but I also have an invitation where I just say in our listing letter, and stay in communication with the listing agent and say, look, if you like my client's offer the best, except for the numbers, please come back to us and let's have a conversation, and just stay in contact with them. And I have had the agent call me and say, you know what, you're not the highest, but my clients like your dates. They love your buyers. They love the profile of your buyers. They love the letter that they wrote. It's amazing to me how few agents actually write a letter or an introduction.
They're not allowed in the US, by the way.
Yeah, it's a side note, but a very litigious place, the US, and you want to be careful about choosing or not choosing an offer based on a buyer's profile, I suppose. But it's an important process selling a home, and people want to know something about who is going to caretake this home for them.
Well, and also, like, if somebody is selling the house that they've lived in for 50 years, and you are coming in with 5 kids and you want to create a family home, that is very attractive to them. If you want to sell just based on price, which some people do, or maybe you care about who's going to be moving into the neighborhood. If you have elderly people and a young family is going to be moving in, or maybe like you have a neighbor who these are things you can't make a decision on based on, like, you have to be careful what the reasoning is. This is how they look at that in the States. So, but that being said, there are 4 different personality types. So some people are interested in knowledge and knowing that you're pre-qualified. I always talk about that in the letter. Yes, I have this client's pre-qualified. Some people are based on nurturing, like, I'm going to take care of your home, and I love the way that here's how I'm going to be using your home. So, like, my kids are going to be playing in the backyard. Other people care about having a quick sale, and so they want this done quickly and know that you're going to go into action and get the deal done. And other people care that you're following the process. Okay, I've already had the inspection done. I've focused on getting all my ducks in a row, and I'm ready to move forward. And so you give them some measure of comfort, and the letter offers all of that. So we specifically on my team, we address all those 4 personality characteristics because we want to make sure that the seller feels comfortable with selling to our client, and they work.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything you can do to show the seller that you're closer to the finish line. And by providing a letter that says, we've done our due diligence, we've already been in contact with the lender and pre-approved and so forth. We've got a building inspection lined up already and pre-booked. If we have a condition on inspection, we haven't had a chance to do a pre-inspection. The buyers love the home, and this is what they appreciate about it, and this is how they're going to maintain it or live in it or fit in with the neighborhood, or in terms of, like, they're going to make themselves. They're going to live in this home as if it was the seller's, and that's not always the case. And sometimes the seller doesn't care. But if you can, as Jane mentioned, if you can hit the high points, you can explain and take away any of the seller's concerns or fears, then it's not always about the price.
Right.
So with the referential offer, that's again that's a contract. It's a number on. It's not even a number on paper. It's just, this is the next highest offer. And for some sellers, they're going to see that as rude, They're going to see it as trying to game the system or jump the queue. Why didn't you offer what you were willing to offer? I really like these other folks better. I'm not even going to worry about the referential offer. I'm going to take this other offer. And then you get the call, why didn't you call me? Why didn't you call me? Well, you didn't put a number on paper, or you brought a low offer and then asked us to counter, but we had some really good offers that were super workable, that just acceptable for my client. And they're
But a referential offer does have a price on it.
Technically, the original, a true referential offer doesn't.
Okay, well, a lot of people have put the price on, yes, and then they go, and I'm willing to pay whatever X amount above the highest offer. I just find it's true what you said about, well, you're dealing with A, the listing agent, but you're also dealing with B, the seller. And how does the seller want to work with this is so important, because, you know, they just be open and honest. Just be open and honest from the start. And that goes a long way, I think, because the seller wants to know that the buyer is going to complete. And how do they know that? They know that through the deposit, if the deposit is big. They know that through having all their ducks in a row, like having everything done beforehand, if possible, and being pre-approved. They know that because of the agent that they work with and who they choose to work for. That the agent is, some agents, you know, are known for their transactions to go through, and others agents, maybe they aren't, or maybe it's a newer agent and they're just getting their feet wet. Like, these are all factors. The agent is the face of the offer too, right? Yeah. It makes a difference who you choose.
Yeah. And sometimes it really depends. Knowing your cooperating agent who you're working with on the other side of the table is really important. Sometimes you're working with someone who you don't have a great relationship with, and sometimes you're working with someone who you do have a great relationship with, and that relationship is really important. But also, even if you don't have a great relationship, if you have a reputation for getting the job done, that's going to still be better than not. It's really important to vet your clients, to communicate well, to have a good, strong communication skills, to keep the other parties informed. And all of that is just great business, and it really helps to assure that you're going to move forward. There's nothing worse than being the listing agent, receiving an offer from another agent, even when you know well, but it's just an offer. So here's the offer. There's no explanation. There's no background. There's no follow-up. There's no interest shown. And so you have to put some effort into it. And if you show and put the effort into it, then the seller and the seller's agent will be compelled to want to deal with you, or at least to give you a chance.
Yeah. And I think that talk about communication is so important, because I think if you you're just open, you're literally an open book, and you're not trying to be subversive in any way. It just goes a long way to just saying, okay, you know what? We're here. We're writing the offer. We're going to go forward. Please accept me. And I think I don't know, it's such a hard thing. Like,
negotiation isn't always about being tough. And sometimes it's about being, well, communicative, clear, concise, firm. Collegial. Yeah, definitely. You know, when somebody starts pushing and you've got 5 other offers on the table, all equally great to work with, and somebody is pushing and trying to put pressure on the seller, and the seller is feeling pressured, they're going to not want to work with that person. And they're going to say, why didn't you work with me? Why didn't you work with me? Well, you were pushing.
That's why.
And my client didn't appreciate it. You know, this is just part of the process. So it's really important to know who you're communicating with, who the seller is, if you can, who the buyers are. It's just all about communication. But it's not about necessarily open. I mean, when you say open book, I know this isn't what you mean, we are negotiating. We are protecting our clients' interest. It's not an open book in terms of here's everything you need to know, but it's an open book in terms of, I'm here and I'm ready to do business, and I'm a phone call away, and we're proactive, and I'm going to share with you everything I'm allowed to share with you from my clients that will help us to move this forward. So,
and as a listing realtor, you want somebody as well who is a great communicator, because you want, so what happens if you get 5 offers in, you're talking to the seller, and you can say, we can deal with this a number of ways. I can call all the agents. Like if 5 offers come in exactly the same, you can call all the agents up and say, please write a new offer, or do you want to change your offer and improve your offer in any way? But it has to be in writing, because technically you're counter offering everything. You could end up with nothing. So you just have to sort of get them to appreciate, here's some options on how we can deal with this. And it's a dance, the dance of negotiation, I guess.
So if you have 2 referential offers, how do you deal with it?
Well, I say to the agent, usually when I've gotten referential offers, they've had a price on it. And I said, I've, in the case where this has happened before, I said, you realize that this is actually a counter offer. You're offering me a counter offer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a non-offer. What is your price? Tell me your price. That's what I'll say to them.
Okay. Yeah.
And then, and I'll take that to the seller.
Mm-hmm.
So I just prefer people to be upfront with me. That's all.
Yeah.
And I think the seller prefers that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, the confusion of a referential offers, and if it became a regular practice, when you've got everybody writing referential offers, you've got, let's say the first person, the person who actually writes a number on the paper, say is 500,000, and then somebody else has said, I'm willing to pay 5,000 above the next highest offer, but somebody else has said they're willing to pay 5,000 above the next highest offer. Then you go back to the first person. At which point do you stop?
Exactly.
So a referential offer is really not considered a great offer. That's the bottom line. Put your number in paper. An invitation to counter is this is what you're referring to. An invitation to counter is saying, like, this is my offer, but please counter offer me if I'm not the best offer. I'm willing to discuss that with you. And you will see, you'll have signed a document right off the bat. When it used to be called working with a realtor, now it's the disclosure representation. But we're not supposed to disclose that our client's willing to pay a penny more than what they're offering, and yet our client is writing on paper, I'm willing to pay many, many pennies more than I'm offering. So we're actually harming our negotiating position. But in this kind of market, and the bottom line is, in this kind of market, it sounds like we're saying, roll over, cave, open up my belly. Here I am. Just take me.
Be an open book.
Be an open book. Because in this market, it's about finding out what the seller wants and being able to provide more than the other buyers when you've got multiple offers.
I think the issue,
like that's not negotiating, but that's actually really great negotiating in finding out what it is that will take it to get the seller to sign acceptance on that offer. For your buyer, if that's the right property for your buyer, it's about communication with your buyer and strategy and so forth.
I think
we would be doing much different strategy and much different negotiating. I
think the issue is where buyers have an issue is it's all about money. And I think they feel like, just give me a break here. Yeah. And some sellers aren't all about money. So I think that if we, and for me as a buyer's realtor, I mean, I just want to win the property for my client. But, and I've submitted offers early on in the process, and then being told, okay, we're going to be waiting till Tuesday to review them because we've had a lot of interest. And I say to my buyer, okay, that's what they've told us. Let's respect the process. And sometimes you're caught off guard, and the listing realtors, we're all trying to preserve the process, I think, and make it fair as we can. And how we do that is just through as transparent communication as we can possibly have. And that means letting everybody know when offers come in. If the seller wants to deal with it, letting everybody know the offers come in, letting everybody know when you're going to be reviewing them, how you're going to be reviewing them, and when you're going to get back to people.
Yeah, just clarity, having clear instructions, clear advice, clear, just again, open book in that regards is really helpful for everyone involved, because there's nothing worse than, as Jane was referencing, there are agents who they discuss with their seller and they say to their seller, look, if we list this and we're willing to take the first offer that comes in the door. Oh yes, sure. Let's not wait for offers. Let's just open the property up, and if we get an offer the first day, we'll consider it. And then they list the property, and then they see 20 showings lined up for the day after the first day on market. And the first day on market, it went on market in the afternoon. There were 3 showings that evening. An offer comes in that evening. The seller says, no, actually, let's wait until Tuesday. So suddenly you're changing the game posts. Again, you've got to just communicate with everyone around that. But I want to go back to something you said, Jane, around, it's all about the money and it's frustrating for buyers. One of the things that is a constant I hear is, well, they only paid, $700,000 for it in 2019. Why are they asking $975,000 today? They're making way too much money. It's not fair, and so forth. And why are realtors trying to get so much money for this place? I've been when you sell that property for that client, and if they don't get enough money to go and buy the next property, which is why they started this process in the first place, that's going to be trouble. And so we're not looking at what they bought it for. It's got nothing to do with the purchase, with the listing price and the value today. We're looking what they can do with that money to move it on to the next one.
Yeah.
And we're not trying to, trust me, it is really frustrating working in a market where prices are going up and up and up and up and up, and there's very low inventory. We're not trying to make that happen, but it's a result of the market and
low inventory.
The low inventory and the high demand. And all we're doing is, for each of our individual clients, doing the best we can to help them manage this and move on to the next phase of their life, into their next home. And that means getting the most they can for that home that they're selling so that they can buy the next home when it comes up, because they're also going to have to be one of many negotiating and bidding and pre-inspecting and referential offering and bully offering and all of that.
Well, here's the other thing I say to people is, especially when you have elderly sellers, like, this is their last sale, you guys. They probably have most of their eggs in their housing basket right now, and they need to fund the rest of their lives. And this is a very important sale to the seller. And so you coming in and lowballing them, they may feel a bit defensive. There's a bit of emotion in the residential real estate market where there is not in the commercial real estate market.
Yeah.
Or when working with investors are like, no. Like, the same thing with working with builders. If you want to go in and buy 2 condos, and one is being sold by a builder and one is being sold by a private resale, or like a resale, you're going to have more leeway on the resale than you are on the builder, because the builder, first of all, they're a very seasoned negotiator. They don't care about the emotions. They just want the money, because for them, it sets a precedent for the rest of the sales. Whereas somebody buying a home from a person, the person is more likely to kind of be a little more flexible, just because A, they're not as seasoned, B, they want to get it sold, and they're only selling one thing. The builder's selling 100.
Yeah, there's only one motivation from the seller, generally speaking, from the builder, and that is the profit motive. They've built this, they've sort of set a path, and they are looking for profit motive. Unless that builder is in dire financial straits, which does sometimes happen, you're not going to get much in the way of negotiation, if at all. Whereas there's a whole myriad of reasons why a private seller would be selling their home: divorce, health issues, just moving on in the property ladder, a child coming, all kinds of reasons. And that can change their motivation. It can change their timelines. It's usually because they have a short timeline. They want to do something else. So there's a little bit more negotiability in that kind of, there's more range in negotiability for that kind of product.
So Roy is saying it's the market. Real estate across Canada is overvalued if considered globally. Using the value as a base, Victoria is undervalued in Canada. It's the best weather and quality of life by far. Shh, don't tell everybody. These houses should be higher, not lower than Toronto. Well, it's true. I mean, if we were comparing ourselves to metropolises across the country, when I go back home to Toronto and I go through houses that are smaller in value and they don't have a yard or whatever, and I see the price of them, it's true. I do feel like, comparatively speaking, but also it's harder to find work in Victoria and the cost of living is a bit higher here. And I agree with you. Where I live, there's no way I would have found what I live in right now in Toronto. So at the price that I got. So I consider myself very lucky to live here and found this place. Yeah. Anyway.
And that's a good point. You look at things from the global perspective and you look at what's going on from the global arena. Victoria is a place that people still want to come to. And I think after COVID works its way through the system, we're going to go back to being, again, a really desirable place for tourism and a really desirable place to live. And
so
go ahead.
There needs to be an economic turnaround to get the incomes in line with the costs. Correct. I agree. Okay. How do we want to close this out?
Abruptly.
Well, I mean, what pieces of advice would you give? I would say come in with your highest and best offer off the bat in a multiple offer, because really you're only going to get one chance.
When I'm seeing offers successful, it's because the agent has asked the listing agent and the seller what it is they're looking for, and they take that in mind. That doesn't mean they give everything, but they've taken it into account. And if it's not going to match what they're looking for, they give a reason, because there's nothing worse than saying, what are you looking for, and giving something different without giving a reason. And sometimes the reason is legitimate and the seller can work with it and they still like that offer.
Okay, so number one, remove the barriers to not accepting. So you want to give them the dates, you want to give a high deposit, and you want to give them a good price. Okay.
You want to show them that you're not only going to be, so not every offer is unconditional and not every offer that's accepted is unconditional. There's still many conditional offers that are accepted. But if I'm going to write a conditional offer, I'm going to try to make that conditional offer protect my clients as clearly as possible while not creating unnecessary conditions. So for example, if I'm going to have a condition for inspection, the standard clause for inspection says, subject to the buyer obtaining and approving an inspection report. It's very subjective. They have to obtain it, they have to approve it. If they don't approve it, they don't have to go forward, technically speaking. So why not add some language that says, subject to the buyer obtaining and approving an inspection report, the cumulative cost of repairs not to exceed, X amount of dollars. If it's less than this amount, the buyer will automatically approve it. It makes that, it removes the barrier to entry and it cleans up an offer that is seen as conditional.
The other thing is, if you write an unconditional offer, is you have to have a visit in there for if you have not had an inspection for insurance, because you will need to get basic information regarding the hot water tank, the wiring, and the plumbing, and roof age. And so just to ensure that you write in your offer that you have access to the property 1 or 2 times before completion so that you can gather that information.
As a seller too, keep in mind you receive an unconditional offer, and we mean by that there's no condition for financing, no condition for inspection, and so forth. The fact that there isn't a condition for financing doesn't mean that the buyer doesn't require financing. They're just taking that risk. The fact that there's, so they might still need an appraisal, and the appraiser still has to come through and appraise the property. I always include language in my offers that say the appraiser is going to be allowed access. But furthermore, if you're looking at two offers, one's unconditional, one's conditional on financing, find out what you can about these people that are bringing the unconditional offer, because the conditional on financing offer may be better.
Well, you can also write the financing clause subject to an appraisal coming at or above the asking price, the accepted offer price. And usually the appraisal does come in right at the asking price because they're determining lending value. But if you make it subject to approval of financing, I'm nuancing it. Do you understand? Oh, and you're stuck. Okay, everybody. Well, we've actually hit an hour on a topic which we didn't think we were going to have a big, long discussion on. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you want more information, please contact Andrew. You can reach him at 360-6106, info@andrewplank.com. If you want more information from me, please call me, JaneJohnston at the BriarHillGroup, 250-744-0775. That's BriarHillGroup@gmail.com. And next week, we're going to be talk to Habitat for Humanity. So if you are in Victoria and you are making a low level of income and you can't afford to buy a house, there may be another option available to you. Habitat for Humanity is providing homes at a reasonable cost for people and with a purchase program involved. Also, if you Andrew's texting me. His computer has blown up. So please join us next Monday. We're on every Monday morning at 10 a.m. and you can reach us here on Facebook or we're on YouTube. And a copy of our show will be on YouTube for you to review. And as always, if you have any questions, please email us. Okay. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, Roy. I appreciate your comments and take care, everybody. Have a great week. Bye.